Okay. So like I said, the lesson for today is on finding rate of tax or commission, very real world application based. And like I said, we're going through some word problems today. We're going to look at two different ones, something that you might see on your assignment later today, where each kind of situation is factored into account. All right. So the first example, a salesperson earns $352 of commission on a sale of $2,200, right? They sell something worth $2,200. A portion that they get of that sale is going to be $352. All right. And what we want to do is go through and find the rate of commission. All right. So we want to kind of find out what percent of the entire sale did this person receive from the sale itself. All right. So they earned $352 out of the $2,200. What we want to do is set up a fraction to kind of help us understand, the portion of that total sale. So what do you think my fraction is going to be for this particular situation? What do you think I have to do with those two numbers? If I want to find out how much 352 is out of 2,200, what number should go in my numerator? What number should go in my denominator? What do we think? Isaiah? Is the numerator. Good. So I'm going to take 352, so that's $352, and divide it by what? 2,200. Good. Now, one thing that I want to make mention of is that we're probably going to need a calculator for today and for the ALEKS homework assignment. So make sure that you have that available, whether you're using Desmos, so you have a calculator or some kind of way for you to do some calculations. And I want us to go through right now and find what 352 divided by 2,200 is going to be. So somebody type that in and then tell me what that is as a decimal. What's that? 0.16, 0.16. So 352 divided by 2,200 is 0.16. All right. Well, that's not our percentage just yet, right? That's a decimal. And we need to kind of pull from what we did earlier on a couple of weeks ago when we were converting decimals to percents. What direction should I move my decimal point so I can make that 0.16 a percent? You remember? What's that? Not the left. So what's the other option? Right, to the right. All right. You have a decimal, you convert it back to a whole number, you convert it to a percentage, you move it to the right. All right. So now I have 16 as that whole number. So 352 that he earned or she earned out of the 2,200 is 16% commission. All right. So the hardest part, or probably the part that's the most tricky, is understanding what fraction you need to set up, right? Understanding the part over the whole, and then how you're going to convert that decimal to a percentage. But once you find that actual value, it should be pretty easy, right? You move your decimal point 2 places to the right to find that final percentage. So on any sale that this person makes, they earn about 16% of the total sale, which is pretty good. Okay. Any questions about that first example? All right, let's take a look at the next example. It says a person gets taxed $612 on their biweekly income of $3,600. What is the tax rate? Okay. So every other week, this person gets paid, just typical, so in case any of you go and get a job eventually. Every other week they get paid $3,600, but $612 is taken out in taxes. So we want to find what is the rate of tax. So if I'm setting up a fraction, very similar to what we did in the last example, what do you think my fraction would be for this particular situation? $612. Whoa. $612 divided by $3,600. Right? It's that portion of the total income, or we saw in the last example, the total sale. It's that portion of tax over the total amount of income. Well, let's find out what this is as a decimal, then we'll convert it to a percentage. 0.17, good. So using a calculator, using Desmos, whatever application you can use, you get 0.17. How do I convert this to a percentage? Where do I have to move that decimal point? 2 times to the right, good. So now I have 17. So as we apply it back to this situation, what that means is every time that this person gets paid, 17% of their paycheck gets taken out in taxes. Okay, so you lose 17% of your total income every time you get paid. Okay. Any questions about that example or the first example or anything that we covered in this quick little mini lesson? So I have a question here. Yeah. This one is a decimal. Would it change anything? What do you mean? This one says an item was 430 before tax, and the sales tax is 25.8. No, it doesn't change anything. Yeah, so if you would put 25.8, so they're saying like what's the percentage of tax, right? So you'd put 25.8 over it. So yeah, it doesn't change anything. You'll always end up with a decimal. You just have to remember how to convert that to a percent. Some of your percentages, most of the time they'll be whole numbers. Sometimes it might have been like 0.183. Well, you move that twice, that's 18.3%, right? So it doesn't necessarily have to be a even whole number like we've seen in the first two examples. You might have something with a decimal in your final answer. Again, like we saw before with our conversions, you just move it 2 places to the right. Okay, good question though.
Yeah. Does anybody here have a job? You have a job? Okay. So you've gotten your paychecks already, looked at your paychecks. You probably noticed that it wasn't the amount that you thought it would have been, and probably a whole lot less, or I don't know if you guys ever looked at that and looked at the details, but definitely something to prepare yourself when you get your first check. You're going to think that you made $300, and then once the percent comes out of the taxes that they're taking, that's your real check. The real amount which is called your net. Yeah. Oh, there's a lot of reasons. So there's the school, the places, the real estate. There's all different things for the federal government. They use the taxes to help pay for certain things in the community, and so it depends on where you live.
Depends where you live, yeah.
And also how much money you're making. So if you're making a smaller amount, they don't take as much money as they would somebody who's making a lot of money.
It's called a tax bracket. So depending on where you fall with your yearly income, you get taxed a certain amount. So people that make more money get taxed more than somebody who makes. What's that? Well, there are some things that get factored into that, but there's ways that businesses get around things like that as well. But that's a conversation for your civics class or something like that. Yeah. So when you go to, depending on where you live or depending on, who controls certain things and like government, stuff like that, like that could affect how the taxes work too. So, just be aware of certain things that, could exist that could factor into that, like we said, where you live, where you work, how much you make, all those things. Okay.
If you have kids.
Yeah.
If you have kids, they take out less. For you guys, obviously, you might take out more because you're single. But yeah, just to give you guys that this is the closest for you guys. It's you're gonna look at your check, you know, and you're gonna be like, you know, what in the world? I saw a video actually online where I don't know if you guys ever saw this. I don't know if it was like a TikTok video or something, but the kid opened up his check for the first time and he started crying. And he was so upset because he thought he made a lot of money and his dad was sitting next to him. And he was sitting there, his dad's trying to tell him like, there's taxes, they take the money out of your checks. And he got mad, he's like, they took my money and all type of stuff. So it's always, you know, good to learn this here, at least you're prepared. And it's not a shock when you get your check and it's, you know, like $100 less than what you thought it would have been. But,
And there's different ways to read your check too. So for example, they